Welcome, everyone, to our webinar this morning, Gaining Control of Amazon, putting the world's #1 e-commerce site to work for you versus against you. My name is Brian Beck with Enceiba. A couple of quick housekeeping items before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, and we will have a copy available to all those who registered for the recording or for the webinar in case you want to share it with your colleagues and team members. Be sure to place your comments and questions in the Q&A box, and we'll get to as many of those as we go through. We have a lot to cover today, and I'm joined by some fantastic industry experts. We'll introduce everyone in just a moment. Again, thank you all for joining. One other note, we do have about 10% of the folks who have registered today actually listened in on our webinar. We did a similar webinar to this back in November of 2023. Some of the content we're going to cover today is similar to some of the content we covered there, but we have some new updates, so it will be worthwhile for you to listen in on the webinar today. But thank you for all the new folks we see on our list. We have a great group of people from across industries joining us today for this discussion. So to get started, let's do some introductions. My name is Brian Beck. I'm the managing partner of a company called Enceiba. We work with branded B2B manufacturers in helping them to manage and control Amazon and grow their programs and presence on Amazon, including their selling approach, their overall strategy for the channel, etc. I'm also the co-founder of Master B2B, which is a thought leadership series in B2B e-commerce. And I wrote a book called $1 Billion B2B e-commerce, available on, of course, Amazon. So again, I'm joined by a fantastic group of people today on this webinar. Want to just go ahead and allow them to introduce themselves. Legal Eagles, John and Alex. John, you want to say hello? You're on mute, John. John's on mute. Can't hear you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today. My name is John Groza. I'm a partner here at KJK. I am on the firm's executive committee and co-chair our brand enforcement e-commerce practice, along with my partner, Alex Jones. We are in the business of helping folks like yourselves shut down unauthorized resellers, protect your intellectual property, as well as your profit margins as you engage in online sales.
Awesome. Alex, want to say hi?
Sure. Hey, everyone. Thanks for being here. Alex Jones, also a partner at KJK, and I co-chair our e-commerce group. Like John said, we work with brands across a variety of industries, helping them navigate the various issues that e-commerce sales presents.
Fantastic. And Michelle, say hello.
Hi, my name is Michelle Dailing. I'm the Senior Director of Operations here at TrackStreet, and we help brands get visibility into who is selling their products where and for how much.
Awesome. And we collectively have worked on a number of different companies together. So excited. We have a lot to offer and talk through today. So thanks again for joining us today, folks. And again, contribute your questions as we go through. So here's what we have in store for you today. Amazon, some quick Amazon trends and updates. I'll provide that. How brands lose control of the channel. We'll talk through that a bit. Understanding Amazon resellers. This is something new that we're going to talk about today, which Michelle has some great insights for us there. The foundations of channel control. You know, if you don't have control of Amazon and other e-com channels, what do you need to have in place to take it back? And then putting the Amazon to work for you. We're going to try to leave a few minutes for Q&A at the end. So we're going to go fairly quickly. Again, we'll send out these slides and a recording after this. So don't feel compelled to take, copious notes or screenshots. It'll all be available to you at the end of this webinar. So let's talk a little bit about where we are with Amazon today. Amazon, as many of you know, if I could do a virtual poll here and raise your hands, how many of you are Prime members? You know, as a consumer, it's a vast majority of folks, at least in the United States. Thank you, Robert Beck, he just raised his hand. And more people raising their, lots of people raising their virtual hands. Excellent. Well, the fact of the matter is Amazon is now responsible for more than 40%, by some measures, almost 50% of US e-commerce. And you can see here on the left, retail e-commerce sales through 2024. It just continued to grow, even at scale, 12%. And on the right-hand side here, Amazon Prime households, 68% of total households in the United States with a Prime membership. It's sort of unbelievable when you think about it. And it continues to grow. Obviously, the pandemic impacted that, but as we come through that, and it's really become a default standard for many people in terms of e-commerce shopping. And it is becoming a dominant force in B2B. This is a Bank of America research. Some of you may have seen this data, which shows $83 billion by 2025 in estimated B2B sales, folks. Now, to put this in context, some of the largest distributors in the market, folks like Grainger, are, they're doing 10 to $15 billion a year. This puts Amazon at a much larger gross revenue number than many of the largest distributors many of you are familiar with. So this continues to grow, and through what's called Amazon Business, which many of you are probably aware of. Amazon has not yet released its Q1 earnings for 2024. However, looking back at the Q4 earnings in 2023, we saw continued growth, and this is really what's continued to amaze really the whole market, is that we've got a company here which is doing enormous volumes and continues to grow at rates like 14% year over year, 170 billion in Q4 sales, net income. This is an important change, is that Amazon, is really focusing on this net income number, $10 billion. They're expecting growth. They provided guidance this quarter for between 8 and 13%. What's driving the growth? Well, it's Amazon Web Services, advertising, both of which are extraordinarily profitable, but also notably Amazon Business. Last year, Amazon really came out of the closet in many ways and started talking about Amazon Business in ways they had never before. And this is a trend we're seeing with a lot of our clients: increased penetration in total Amazon sales of Amazon Business or B2B. Some of our clients are getting upwards of 60% of their sales from Amazon Business. But what's really interesting about Amazon, and we've been students of Amazon here collectively for, I don't know, probably 5 decades, the focus on profitability really has become acute. And we see this particularly as it relates to companies going through their AVN, Amazon vendor negotiations, if they're selling 1P, where there's more pressure than ever before from Amazon to really enforce profitability. And we see it across the board. And this has implications for you as a seller or a vendor, because it's changing the way, in many ways, Amazon works with its suppliers. Again, that focus on profitability is first and foremost here for Amazon these days. Now, what does this all say? We see all this volume, and our topic today is talking about channel control. And at the heart of channel control is Amazon itself, 1P, but also resellers. And if we look here at this data, the percentage of units sold through Amazon by third-party resellers to the end of last year, you could see it increasing. It's over 60% now of units sold on Amazon are coming from third-party sellers. And frankly, Amazon's made it easier and easier for 3P companies to launch 3P selling accounts. We also see a lot of companies now coming directly from Asia, launching 3P selling accounts, and using the well-established Amazon best practices and tools in category after category. We find that there are non-traditional competitors entering the markets that B2B companies have traditionally dominated, manufacturers here in the US through traditional distribution. And these companies are doing millions of dollars in sales. They're very good at Amazon and increasingly have products that are comparable to US. So not only resellers, but also direct competitors coming out of Asia in particular. And, the lack of manufacturer controls on this channel, on Amazon and other channels as well, really contributes to this trend as well, where there's, it's easy for some of these folks to come in and to offer products on Amazon, indirect, and you don't even know in many cases who they are. We did a study a few years ago that asked the question, do you know who's selling your products? We started by saying, hey, are resellers selling your products on Amazon? Almost 70% of manufacturers said yes, but over 70% also said they didn't know who the resellers were. So, this is an issue where you got folks representing your brand on a very pervasive channel, and you don't have control of it. And that's a real issue that we're going to address today. And how do you regain that? The other thing we're seeing is that manufacturers are shifting towards using the 3P selling model. 45% of B2B companies, in a survey we did at the end of last year of manufacturers, 45% are indicating they are now using Seller Central versus the 1P selling model. If you look on the right here, you'll see 45% are using 3P, 18% are using a hybrid 1P, 3P. Only 14% are using Vendor Central, which is interesting, and I think reflective of a trend we're seeing overall in the market, where the B2B brands, and we see this in consumer as well, that they are shifting towards using this selling model. I'll define the selling models a bit later, but a lot of the folks we have on our webinar today from what we saw, are using the 1P, or in some cases now increasingly 3P. So this is a real trend we're seeing in the market, is this shift. We also see regulatory pressures. Amazon is under pressure, as I'm sure, reading the news, and everyone loves to hammer on Amazon because they're the biggest marketplace out there in the U.S. But if you look at the FTC and U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, the FTC filed a lawsuit for illegally maintaining monopoly power. That's ongoing. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission is considering ruling Amazon a distributor, which would make Amazon responsible for products that are sold by third-party sellers. And this has implications for you as a brand, because if Amazon is now responsible for the liability of the product that is sold on their channel, even if they never owned it, if Amazon never bought it and it's sold by a third-party reseller, we believe that this has implications for how Amazon will allow for additional sellers on products. They'll be more sensitive to counterfeits, et cetera. We think this actually could benefit some of the traditional manufacturers we have on the line today, in terms of Amazon being more cautious in these areas. In other words, preempting some of the FTC case claims, et cetera. And remember here too that Amazon's primary goal is to protect consumers, or the FTC's is to protect consumers, not brands. So you have to keep that in mind. However, we do see these as trends that are going to impact how companies, the opportunities companies have to sell on the channel. So there's a little bit of setting the stage here. I want to turn it over now to you, John, to talk a little bit about how do companies lose control of Amazon? How does that happen?
Sure. Thanks, Brian. So losing control can happen in a variety of ways. It's usually a series of events or a failure to maintain proper controls on a number of levels. Here we have an example of, Cascade dishwasher soap pods. Cascade is a very prominent brand, owned by Procter & Gamble, one of the largest consumer product companies in the world. Obviously, they invest a lot of time and energy and money into their brands. So when they have an unknown third party in possession of their products, selling it on a marketplace like Amazon, that's obviously very problematic and something that they're not going to want to see. Here we have a couple what appeared to be pretty blatant unauthorized resellers of Cascade. NB Things, you can see right here they have 50% positive reviews. I think pretty much everybody on this call would probably agree that you'd like to see better than 50% positive reviews for your products. Not knowing who these folks are, they're serving, whether you like it or not, as ambassadors of your brand in the marketplace. And when the product is purchased through an unauthorized seller like an NB Things, or you see one below, God is Perfect, also with only 50% positive reviews, the ultimate end user consumer is not necessarily going to associate the Cascade product with those sellers. They're going to associate it with you, Cascade, Procter & Gamble, whether you like it or not. And there's no, visibility here as to how those products have been maintained. What's the chain of custody? So it creates a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainty, and just a kind of a classic case that we see all the time with clients where their products have slipped into the hands one way or another, to someone that they would prefer not to be selling their product. So what can we do about that? And how does it happen? How does this scenario arise? If we kick it over to the next slide, we can explore that a little bit more. So sometimes this can be a product of having a lack of a distributor agreement or an authorized reseller agreement in place, which actually dictates how your authorized sellers, your authorized dealers are to maintain those products, where they can sell. We're seeing a lot of our clients, especially larger clients, going towards the model of being the exclusive sellers of their products on third-party marketplaces like Amazon. So they might have authorized dealers who maybe they allow them to sell on their own proprietary websites online, but they like to maintain, and it's becoming, I think, more prevalent, where they prefer to maintain that control on these third-party marketplaces for a lot of the reasons we'll discuss today. Another way that this situation might arise where you start to lose control is having inadequate controls that would enable you to trace products from the manufacturer to its end use. So what do we mean by that? You might have serial numbers or even some kind of stickers. Michelle will touch on this later in the presentation. But there's ways and that you can kind of track your products. So when you do see someone that you don't want selling your products, you might want to conduct a test buy or get your hands on those products and see. And if you're using proper tracking controls, you can determine where that product originally came from when it left your hands. So is this an instance where an authorized dealer was maybe violating their agreement with you and allowing those products to slip into the hands of unwanted third parties? So if you're not maintaining that, then it inevitably leads to more and more unauthorized resellers. Failure to maintain internal alignment with your sales team internally is something that we see from time to time with clients. Often there's different sides of the house that have competing interests internally. You have a sales team, an e-commerce team perhaps, that understands these issues and is very focused on enforcing MAP pricing and making sure that the authorized resellers are playing by the rules and policing the unauthorized sellers. However, there might be a liquidation arm of your business that has an interest in making sure that they're unloading products after a certain point in time and capturing additional revenue. So it's important to have that internal alignment as you're going out into the marketplace for certain, and that can help combat some of these issues and help you to maintain control and avoid this type of scenario.
So where do these resellers come from? I know, Michelle, and by the way, folks, I see you chiming in with some comments here. Thank you. And questions. We're going to get to those at the appropriate time. Thank you again, Stuart. We have another anonymous one here, so we'll get to those soon. Donna, thanks for raising your hand. If you want to submit a question, go ahead and do that in the Q&A and we can get to that. So Michelle, you want us to talk about who the heck are these folks and where do they come from and what motivates them?
Absolutely. Thank you. So there are many reasons that these resellers on Amazon, and we are living in a gig economy where people are looking for side hustles all the time. One of the biggest reasons is the low startup cost. It doesn't cost a lot to open an Amazon store. It really costs you the acquisition price of the products. Amazon has a vast customer base. Brian touched on it earlier, how many households within the United States have an Amazon Prime account. I think it's somewhere over 170 billion or million, sorry, million with an M, that have access to Amazon Prime and can have things delivered to their doorstep in 2 days or less. There's no need for a website. You don't have anything on the back end that you have to build yourself. You submit your ASINs and your products are live and they can be sold. It's quick profitability. There's no team required. Individuals can do this and make money on their own. And you don't have to have a warehouse. If you're selling fulfilled by Amazon, you ship it directly to Amazon's warehouse and Amazon takes care of all of the rest of it for you. You don't have to manufacture your own products and you get to build off of Amazon's well-known brand reputation. So people are purchasing from a known and trusted retailer such as Amazon. You don't have to operate from anywhere specific. People can work from home, out of their basement, in their pajamas, and make a decent living. There's a ton of growth potential within the Amazon ecosystem, and it offers a lot of anonymity for these sellers to not have to actually identify who they are or how they're getting the product.
Amazing.
Some reseller trends that we're seeing right now, 20% of Temu sellers are also selling on Amazon. So there's this big push from these, Brian talked about it earlier, these Asian manufacturers who are actually making products and then selling them direct to consumer within the United States. Temu is one of those websites. If you haven't looked at it yet, you can get things for really cheap. It takes a long time to get to your house, but you can get them for a very low cost. And those Temu sellers are starting to migrate onto Amazon as well, and it's creating a lot of disruption for traditional manufacturers within the United States. Same thing with Shein. 20% of Shein sellers are also on Amazon. The other elephant in the room is Walmart. Walmart has a third-party marketplace. 50% of Walmart sellers are also selling on Amazon. Walmart has a vastly smaller number of third-party sellers within their ecosystem, but they do have crossover with Amazon. Sometimes they use the same seller name. Oftentimes they use a different seller name from platform to platform. 46% of all Amazon sellers, brands, and businesses operating in the United States marketplace also operate in at least one other international marketplace. So Amazon UK, Amazon France, at least one other. 20% of Amazon sellers, brands, and businesses have plans to expand to TikTok Shop this year. I have a couple of young kids who all the time we go into stores and they're like, oh, I saw that on TikTok. So it is a massive way for these brands to have influencers that get their products in front of consumers and consume that content. And they're starting to purchase off of the TikTok platform. Lastly, 23% of Amazon sellers also choose eBay as their top alternative platform in 2023. eBay is not just for used goods anymore. I used to go on there and shop for weird stuff and antiques and those kind of things. It's not just for those one-off rare finds anymore. There are sellers on there that are selling large amounts of inventory.
Yep. How do they get the product?
Great question. There are so many different ways that these resellers are able to get product. One of them is purchasing directly from the manufacturer under a different name. So they're purchasing from you under one name, they're selling it under another. They're purchasing products and pallets from membership warehouse stores. So your Costco's, your Sam's Clubs, your BJ's, they're going in and they're purchasing these products in mass at a discount, and then they are reselling them online. Retail arbitrage is another big one. So obviously, clearance aisles are another big deal for some of these folks. And not to exclude TJX companies and some of those off-price stores, Marshall's, Home Goods. They're going in there. You can Google that or search that up on TikTok, and there are a ton of people that actually go on and film videos as to how they're doing this and making a living. Another way is online arbitrage. And some people don't think about this, but if you're a manufacturer that has your own website and you're selling goods and you're offering discount codes and coupons, make sure that they can't stack those up against each other and receive larger discounts, because once they combine that with their credit card rebates that they get from their banks, their 5% cash back, and sometimes you give those offers also to credit card companies, like 10% off of goods at this site, they stack those up, they're able to sell against you at a decent margin, and they're able to discount those products. So online arbitrage is another big deal. Drop shipping. I have had products show up to my door that I've ordered from Amazon that show up in a Home Depot or a Walmart box. So they're actually placing that order at that other retailer after you placed your order to them on Amazon. Obviously, private label is another way. Liquidation and surplus, you talked on this a little bit, making sure that products that are marked as destroyed in field are actually destroyed and they're not making it somewhere else. Those pallet discounts, they're not just for the bin stores anymore where you go in and it's $5 on Monday and $4 on Tuesday and on down the line until it's $1. That's showing up all over the place, including but not limited to Facebook Marketplace, obviously Amazon, all kinds of different places. B2B marketplaces such as Amazon's business platform where you're able to purchase in bulk at a discount. And then last but not least, trade shows where manufacturers have these screaming deals where you can purchase things on the trade show floor and have them shipped to your warehouse location. Just be careful that you know who those folks are and where that product is going to end up.
I've even heard of instances of stolen products showing up, right, Michelle? I mean, they're very resourceful, these resellers. Here's some articles to that end, right?
Yes, the theft rings have recently been in the news. There were two. There was one in Florida and there was one in California. And they're no longer just impacting shrink at brick and mortar stores. It's starting to affect manufacturers where these goods are being sold online at a large discount because they sold them and they were free to them. It's all 100% pure profit.
Wow.
And it's not just Amazon, it's also Walmart, eBay, and it's not just a single industry. We hear a lot about the Ulta ring or the cosmetics, but there are goods that are being stolen from Ulta, Sephora, TJ Maxx, Walgreens, CVS, Home Depot, Best Buy, and even luxury brands. I live in the Chicago area. I swear daily we have some kind of news report about smash and grabs where they're crashing stolen cars into buildings and stealing Louis Vuitton purses and then selling them.
And this stuff is coming to B2B too, right? Yeah.
Yes. And then last but not least, they're the dumpster divers.
Yeah.
And that article came from Wall Street Journal, and they're dumpster diving from product that's been designated as destroy in field, or it's past expiration date or near expiration date. They're dumpster diving and they're selling it online.
That's crazy. Wow. Wow. Okay. So, but they talk to each other, don't they?
They do.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously social media is huge these days. There are a ton of Amazon seller forums all over the place. You can find them on Facebook. There are over 430 groups that are designated to Amazon selling on Facebook. They're on LinkedIn, WhatsApp. They do meetup groups.
Wow.
Eventbrite had over 199 pages of results for just the US. Social media platforms, it's everywhere. You can get instructions on how to do anything. And then conferences and events, they're actually holding their own local, national, and even global conferences.
Wow. I love the screenshot over here. This is how TJ Maxx clearance section pays my bills. That's wild.
Exactly. They're
Yeah.
filming it and they're sharing it on social media for others to learn from.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's not just Amazon, right?
It's not. There are many platforms that we're seeing third-party sellers in. It's obviously, I talked about TikTok Shop earlier. Shopify, Walmart, eBay, Etsy, Instagram, Facebook Marketplace, Alibaba, Target, Shein. They're everywhere.
Yeah. But it's not always bad.
No, it can be a good thing. Some of the benefits of having them is if they are good partners and they're authorized resellers, they can benefit the brand by expanding your market reach, reaching customers that you wouldn't. There are a lot of manufacturers that simply can't set up to ship in the quantities needed for some of these if you're shipping to fulfilled by Amazon. Some manufacturers are only set up to ship pallets or truckloads of product.
Right.
So if you can have a third party seller that can help you get that market reach without you having to put the work in to get it to Amazon, it's a good thing. It also helps with risk mitigation by not putting all of the manufacturer's eggs in a single basket. It can help you with having backstops should you ever be out of stock on things, you have supply chain issues, or you're out of stock. Hopefully, some of your authorized resellers also have that product in stock, and your end consumers are able to procure the product without any disruption.
Well, it sounds like the Wild West, Michelle. What can you do to regain control? Just use Amazon brand registry, right?
Yeah, Amazon brand registry definitely has some upsides and some downsides. And I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding from a lot of our clients as to what Amazon brand registry can do. So requirements for brand registry, you have to have a United States Patent and Trademark Office trademark. It has to be a branded product, branded packaging, and a branded domain name. Then you can register. Within Amazon brand registry, you can do ASIN merge research, and it has a tool to execute those ASIN merges. It helps you to present all of the brand's content, A+ content pages, brand imagery, all of those things first as applicable. It gives brands access to creating a brand store and brand creation tools. It's also now where they've moved some of the other pieces like advertising, Vine, which is a Kickstarter program. You can create virtual bundles. You can do A/B testing on your advertising. There's a lot of things you can do within brand registry, but there are a couple of things that you can't do.
Michelle, one thing I want before we go to what you can't do. Stuart Webster, thank you for your question. He asked, competitors selling using my ASINs, what should I do? And I would imagine that this is where you could use brand registry, right? And ASIN merging means if you have multiple ASINs representing the same product, your same SKU, but it's listed multiple times on Amazon, you can merge those, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an instance, Stuart, where you can use brand registry.
Absolutely.
So what can it do?
It does not prevent resellers from reselling your product, even if you're the brand owner. Now, remember, we talked about earlier, 60% of Amazon's products are sold through the third-party marketplace. And it's a revenue stream for Amazon. They don't have to physically purchase the products, but they receive essentially commissions when the products are sold. They receive fees for if they're sold fulfilled by Amazon. There's a storage fee, there's a shipping fee, there's a handling fee. They're obviously making money off of advertising. It is not Amazon's job to remove third-party sellers from their marketplace because remember, they do make a lot of money off of it. And if you can't prove that the products were not legally purchased, and that's one of those things, you can start a case. And if they reach out to the seller and the seller can produce an invoice or a receipt, they can continue to sell your products.
And there are some things that we do inside of brand registry to help kind of make it harder for resellers to sell. We can issue trademark complaints, a variety of other things. But yes, brands, I think the message here, Michelle, is that brand registry is not the solution in and of itself. One leg of the stool, right?
Absolutely.
Well, let's go and turn this over to Alex. And Alex, I think you're going to talk about a couple things related to getting a foundation in place to manage these resellers.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as we know, I think brand registry is not a silver bullet, and you kind of have to take a multi-pronged approach if you want to get resellers off your listings. So from the legal side, what we're talking about there is really protecting your intellectual property rights. The claims that we assist brands in making against unauthorized resellers are grounded in IP law. They're grounded with respect to your trademark infringement, copyright infringement, trademark dilution. Those are the claims that we're coming after resellers for. And so it's important that, before you kind of get this process going of putting in place a program to remove unauthorized resellers, you have in place what I'll call your intellectual property house. So that means making sure all your trademarks are registered, making sure all your copyrights are registered. All those things are buttoned up so that you can make valid claims against those resellers. And the reason for that is because the mere fact that someone is unauthorized to sell is not grounds enough to make a trademark infringement claim. And the reason for that is if we go to the next slide, is what's called the first sale doctrine. The first sale doctrine it's rooted in copyright law, but has been applied to trademark law. And basically, it's kind of what it sounds like, that after the first sale, a reseller is allowed to use your trademark. And that is the defense that we generally receive back once we start going after resellers. Fortunately for us, the first sale doctrine is not absolute, and there are differences. The main differences that we deal with in this space are what we're going to call the material differences exceptions. And what that basically says is, if you can show that products sold by the brand are quote unquote materially different than products sold by unauthorized resellers, then the first sale doctrine doesn't apply, and then you have valid trademark infringement claims, valid trademark dilution claims. So that begs the question, is how do you make something materially different? Obviously, there are easy cases. They have repackaged the product. They've scratched out a barcode, something along those lines, something physical where it's very easy to tell. But courts have also consistently found that there are non-physical material differences between products. And the two places that typically goes are what's called quality control exception and then warranty protection. As it relates to quality controls, this is how a product needs to be handled, shipped, stored. It goes into customer service requirements and all these various things that a brand can do with respect to how its product goes from the manufacturer to the end user. It's important that these quality controls are specific to your brand. They shouldn't just be generic. And then we also talked about reseller agreements and distributor agreements. It's also important that those quality controls are in those agreements so that each of your authorized sellers is obligated to follow these quality controls. And so the theory here is then you have the brand authorized resellers selling under quality controls. You have unauthorized resellers not selling with the quality controls. And so the products are materially different. Similarly with like a warranty. So again, the brand can offer a warranty on its products, but it becomes void if sold by an unauthorized reseller. So again, you're getting a product with and without a warranty. So courts have found those to be materially different, and that gives you a legal groundwork in order to go after these resellers. The one thing I'll note on the warranty protection is that it's important that if you are going to go down this path, that if a customer calls looking for the warranty protection in place, your customer service really needs to be asking, hey, where'd you get this product? Because if they're just going to honor it regardless, then the quality and the warranty is really just pretextual. So it needs to be, hey, if you didn't buy this from us, go to the unauthorized reseller. We really, encourage you to buy directly from the brand. So that's kind of the lay of the land of the legal foundation you need in order to have valid legal claims to go after resellers. So
Alex, sorry to interrupt you, Alex. Quick question came in from Sharon Vessels. Thank you, Sharon. Why isn't the burden of proof on the reseller to prove they have authority to sell that brand or product? Is that what you were saying by, some of these is maybe a brand registry? Any thoughts on that?
So I guess the easiest way to answer that would be from a legal sense, that we are claiming they are infringing on our trademark, and under the U.S. legal system, that burden is on us to prove that they're doing that. So that would be ultimately why the reseller doesn't have to prove that they have authority.
Okay. All right. What about identifying these people? They seem to be hard to find, aren't they?
Yeah, no, it's you can do all the work you want to put in place the best reseller agreements, have the best quality controls, but if you don't know who the people are, they're not going to do you very good. So as if you've worked on Amazon at all, you recognize that the resellers tend to, they hide behind the storefronts, they hide behind DBAs. I think it was a few years back, Amazon started publishing some information. We have found that information to be incomplete, inaccurate, and then sometimes just straight made up information.
Mhm.
So what we rely on is what we call the DMCA subpoena. The DMCA stands for the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. And under that law, we are actually able to issue a subpoena to Amazon in order to have them give the seller's information to us. So we find that to be more reliable than the public information. It's coming directly from Amazon. We also get an email address, which is not public, which tends to be a more effective way to communicate with these resellers. So we like to rely on the DMCA when we don't have a good way to otherwise identify the resellers. But I know there are non-legal ways to also identify the resellers that I think Michelle is going to talk about.
Well, getting back one slide to this material
Sure.
differences stuff. Real quick here, Alex. We had a question that came in regarding material difference from an anonymous attendee here. Can you claim material difference exception through brand registry if a product warranty is only valid through authorized sellers? In other words, can we use brand registry to help us here?
I have not had success with brand registry because that's going to be Amazon's decision. And Amazon always takes a position that that type of agreement is as between brand and reseller, and they're not going to get involved or make an opinion as to whether the warranty is valid or not. I will say that Amazon's terms and conditions do require you to be able to offer a warranty if the manufacturer has it. So we like to use that as another leverage point by saying, hey, if you're going to be offering it as new, you can't offer our warranty. So that's another. That's also creating customer confusion, which is kind of the ultimate test of a trademark infringement claim: is our customers getting duped into something.
Gotcha.
So brand registry probably won't help you, but Amazon's terms and conditions actually from a purely legal perspective are quite helpful in making those claims.
Wonderful. Okay.
And then, of course, that material difference would tend to hold up in federal court as well. So while Amazon might not be particularly helpful, federal courts are recognizing that as a material difference distinction.
Okay. So how do we trace the product source?
So there are a few things that you can do. You want to work with your master distributors to assist you with enforcement. I think a good practice is to always ask them to match invoices. If you're seeing sellers in a specific area that have large inventories, for them to take a look at where are they shipping to within that specific area, or if they have someone under that name purchasing. Now, of course, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes they use one name to purchase under and a different name to sell under. But sometimes your distributors can help you unravel if they're shipping large shipments to somewhere often. They should be able to help you identify if that's someone that shouldn't be selling your products online. Test purchases with a chain of custody are always a great option. It's great if you have serialization. That always helps. If you're serializing products, you can trace them to where you sold them to first. If you can't do that, there's a little trick that if you want to test to see where these products are coming from, it's labor intensive, but you could always place little stickers on the bottoms of products. Blue stickers go to distributor A, red stickers go to distributor B, and you can try to trace back to see if you have a distributor that's not necessarily following your rules.
And if some of those methods don't work, you always have the option to engage a private investigator, which we've done with clients in certain instances. They can be helpful in actually getting on site, kind of seeing firsthand maybe where shipments are coming and going.
There's also tools like Michelle, I think our folks from Counterdiversion actually are on this call, where there's some approaches that will allow you to match order files of the invoices to what is being actually sold on Amazon. There's some statistical ways they do that, I think. But there are tools, and that's one example, that allow you to kind of match up those orders. We did get a question here from an anonymous attendee here. At one time, Amazon was commingling inventory in their fulfillment centers, which limit the ability to gain information through test buys. Is commingling inventory still a practice for Amazon? We're seeing that. Michelle, I don't know if you have any other point of view on that they're still commingling. Go ahead.
You can ask Amazon not to commingle your inventory. You can definitely put in those requests that your inventory is not to be commingled with other items that are being shipped in from unknown sources. Do they always follow that? Probably not.
Right. Okay, let's keep going here. John, I think you're going to speak to this, or Alex, one of you guys is.
Yeah, I can take this one. So the next kind of step in the whole process of managing resellers is, actually going after them. So what does that look like? From the legal side of it, this is kind of where we start our cease and desist campaign. Basically, we send a series of escalating cease and desist letters that said that, for the most part, say, hey, we see you're selling our products, you're unauthorized, you're infringing on our rights, stop. We escalate that, saying that if you don't stop, we're going to file a lawsuit. And even with certain brands, we will actually put together sort of a form lawsuit and attach it to the letter and say, hey, if you don't stop selling, we're going to file this in court. So that's kind of the process. Generally speaking, this process, kind of the escalated approach, gets a lot of responses. It takes down a good majority of the resellers. But what we are finding over the past few years is there is kind of that last mile of resellers who are more and more stubborn. These tend to be the more sophisticated resellers. These tend to be the ones who have gotten cease and desist from other brands, and those brands have not followed through with filing a lawsuit. And so effectively, they're just calling the bluff, and they're saying, do something about it. So we have found that lawsuits have becoming more necessary for those very high volume sellers who are taking the buy box. And what a lawsuit looks like, I think John can kind of speak to that, and what you can expect, and kind of the pros, cons, risks, benefits.
Yeah, so a lot of our clients, get a little, it's the reality of a lawsuit or the concept of litigation can be a little frightening, understandably so. Some of our larger clients do have in-house legal departments who understand how that litigation process plays itself out. Others, more in the middle market or lower middle market, do not have their own legal counsel oftentimes. So it can be typical litigation of a distraction and people associated with being very expensive. The reality and what we've experienced in our years of doing this and engaging in these types of lawsuits on behalf of brands is that they're typically settled very early on in the process after a complaint is served. So as Alex described, the cease and desist process, you will have that more stubborn faction of resellers that will say, yeah, kind of put up or shut up. We're not going to go away unless you do something about it. So if you do something about it, and this is often a conversation we have with the client, if there are resellers who are particularly disruptive, they have amassed a critical inventory of a number of products. So they've been prevalent over a number of different product categories, and they maybe raise the ire of some of your authorized dealers. And your authorized dealers are asking questions. What are you going to do about this? We're playing by the rules. They shouldn't be allowed to coexist with us on Amazon or other third-party marketplaces. So you can make a calculated decision to file a lawsuit, and typically that would be in the federal court where our client resides. And what we're effectively doing is hailing one of these unauthorized sellers into a federal court that is probably in a different part of the country than where they reside. So that quickly becomes a cost-benefit analysis for these folks. What is it really worth it to them to have the right to sell your products? And in almost every instance, now there's, litigation is inherently unpredictable. You can never guarantee a result. However, in almost every instance where we're dealing with some of these less than sophisticated resellers, or even some more sophisticated ones, they quickly say, all right, it's not worth it to us to sell your products, and we're going to stand down. Thereafter, we kind of serve up to them a settlement agreement that's very favorable. Now we have leverage. In order for us to dismiss the complaint, we require you to settle this on these terms. And that's an opportunity for our clients then to get some additional information. Where'd you get these products? What kind of revenue did you derive from the sales? And so that's a particularly helpful point of leverage there. Sometimes if certain products that our clients sell, there's a real public policy argument to be made. So we have a client who sells some of their products have lithium batteries. If those weren't stored or shipped or maintained properly, those lithium batteries can potentially be hazardous and dangerous. So that could be an additional point of leverage. Our food and beverage clients as well, if those food and beverage products are not shipped, stored, maintained properly, that could be very dangerous for the consumer. When you do file a lawsuit, there's a tangential benefit just aside from getting that particular seller to go away, and you get them to go away in perpetuity through a settlement agreement. Sometimes we also have, we'll get a judgment entry whereby if they breach that, there could be a liquidated damages provision where you'd be entitled to now, enforce that judgment entry against them, which would entitle you to, whatever that was negotiated. But the two other kind of tangential benefits here are it's sending two messages. One, sending a message to that network of resellers. As we talked about earlier, these resellers are in constant communication with one another. They talk. When they see a lawsuit's been filed by your brand, they're going to know that message is going to get out into the marketplace, and it's going to cause other resellers to pay more attention to your cease and desist letters because they know that you're willing to go that extra step and escalate this to an actual lawsuit in federal court. The second critical message that it sends is to your authorized dealer partners. And it demonstrates to them that you're doing right by them, and you're willing to be vigilant and take these issues seriously.
And that's actually a really good point, John, because we often find that when we go down this enforcement path with some of our clients, they say, well, oh my gosh, I got all these guys who are playing these companies, these partners that are playing, fair. They're abiding by the rules. And they come back to them, they say, well, what are you doing about all these unauthorized resellers? We're raising to your map price. We're going to comply with all your policies, et cetera. So that's a real issue. And a real,
So it can be a complaint that's, it's a version of a complaint that we can tailor to the specific situation and client.
Yep.
But typically we're not even getting to the discovery phase of litigation. It's a complaint followed by some negotiations with the seller directly or perhaps with their counsel, and then getting a settlement agreement in place very, very early on in the process.
Yep. Great. Okay. So, one of the things that's important here is internal alignment, right? And I'll briefly cover this, but we talked about the sales team earlier. Having your sales team online and aligned is critical. And in the loop as you're doing this, because again, if that alignment doesn't exist, you can end up with resellers popping back up that you're not aware of. You have to be willing also to cease selling to offending resellers. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. You have a great policy, enforcement plan, et cetera, but if you don't stop selling to the ones, even master distributors in some cases that are reselling to others who are reselling on Amazon, you have to consider this, because you have to be serious about it if you're going to make this effective. Global alignment can be also necessary. Some of our clients are large global multinational companies, and they if they don't have internal controls in place for markets in wherever, Asia or Europe or what have you, you can see this. You can have the sales teams in those markets selling to folks who are then selling on Amazon, and your product's showing up on Amazon US, even though the transaction didn't occur in the US. And really, one of the things we see, it's critical here in working with our clients, is that you need to have executive will. The top of the organization has to be aligned with this. If you don't have your executive team, if you're trying to work in a bubble and you're just managing Amazon, that's your only influence you have in the organization, you're going to need to go up and get the senior team aligned with you, or that the sales team may not play ball. You're not going to have the ability to stop selling people or retain the kind of resources you need to make this effective. So internal alignment is critical. I'm going to talk briefly about how, one of the things, some of the high level things you can do to put Amazon to work for you. I talk a lot about, and we do a lot of these kind of analyses with our clients around vendor central versus seller central and how you're selling. Vendor central in a nutshell means you're selling to Amazon wholesale. Amazon takes ownership of the product. They resell the product, they set the price, etc. Seller central means you're selling through Amazon as a seller. This gives you advantages because it allows you to set the price on your seller central account for the retail price of the product. It is typically higher profit and revenue for the client, for our clients or for the company. But also it gives you more control over the overall situation on Amazon, because often when Amazon owns the product in a 1P a relationship or vendor central relationship, they're going to be the lowest price in the market, which ends up causing channel conflict for you. And it's not even the resellers that are causing the channel conflict problems. It's Amazon itself. So 3P provides you with the control. It's your storefront. You control the assortment, inventory, price, brand content, and you capture the full retail price. It's usually more profitable. You can also create hybrid programs. So if you're a vendor central program, today you can potentially create a hybrid program. We've taken some very large vendor central accounts and created hybrids or shifted them completely over to 3P. There's a lot of advantages. We don't have time to go through all of them today, but it's, again, selling approach is one element of the strategy here, which we think is important for maintaining channel control. We also offer and collaborate with TrackStreet and KJK in creating these authorized for Amazon programs. It typically involves a combination of selling direct, often with a 3P model, and selling through authorized resellers. And in this scenario, and it's some of the sausage making here, but really coming up with a specific set of criteria, which includes some of the things I'll just highlight here on the screen. Whoops. And it'll, you're going to ask these folks who are authorized to sell on Amazon for specific things and put it into an agreement with them. And these are things like minimum stock position held, supporting your value proposition, that they're selling through multiple channels. Maybe it's a traditional distributor that's selling through branches or selling through their own e-commerce site, that they can provide post-purchase support for your product and service. They're committing to advertising. They're going to comply with your policies. They're going to be demonstrating significant capability on Amazon, maintaining a seller rating of at least 90%. These are some examples of criteria you can set for an authorization program, which, by the way, you adhere to as well, right? If you're going to sell directly. And then, pair this with all the things we've been describing related to distribution agreements, internet policies, et cetera, the things that John and Michelle highlighted earlier. Do a couple quick case studies, and I know we have some questions that come in. We're going to try to get to as many of them as we can. We've got a few more slides here I want to share. But when you do this well, folks, this is a branded manufacturer that makes professional beauty products. It's been a client of ours for about 5 years now. These folks went through a process where, if any of you know what buy box win is, that's the amount of times that you as the brand or your authorized reseller is actually winning the buy box or winning the sale on Amazon. And there's some percentages here on the right, this chart, 90 to 95% buy box win rate. This company is taking control. It eliminated unwanted resellers, and they've benefited by applying all of the best practices we've talked about here. They've shifted from 1P to 3P. They established themselves as the only seller. They established all the policies we talked about. They made it hard on authorized resellers to sell their products. They used brand registry to merge ASINs, things like that. They're proactively monitoring, and they stopped selling to some of their offending distributors. Today, they're approaching 6 million in sales direct by the brand, and they're getting incremental sales from the authorized resellers as well. This is a case study of success, but it's not this isn't something that happens in a week or two. It took a process which over time elapsed to about 12 months before they started seeing all these things come to fruition. So this is to set expectations internally. This is also not an instant win. It's a process, right, that has to be engaged in. So Michelle, monitoring tools are a big part of that. You want to talk about these?
Yeah. So one of the first things that you want to make sure that your monitoring tool does is it detects all critical policy violations, whether that's MAP policy violations or unauthorized sellers. And you want to be able to monitor beyond just Amazon, including eBay, Walmart, Google Shopping, individual websites, international, all kinds of different places. You want it to be able to provide customized solutions that are tailored to your brand and your revenue goals, and then be able to deliver clear, actionable data that you can actually take action on immediately. Automated capabilities are a huge plus. You can fully customize workflows, be able to segment custom automation to match your policies and protocols, and then gather, record, and store violation documentation for legal compliance and future needs, such as screenshots and things like that. Last but not least, actionable data. So real-time information on sellers, contact and identification information, what's their name, what's their address, their email address, fax number, wife's cell phone, whatever you can find. And then scheduled reports and detailed sales tracking, as well as partner and relationship management capabilities. So sending out one-off emails to different partners, identifying different things that are going on within the marketplace.
Yeah, and some companies, Michelle, will say, "Hey, we just track this manually. We can see who the resellers are on Amazon." It is so hard, and it changes all the time. You folks, you can't do that manually. You don't want to do it manually. You'll have to assign someone every day, hours a day, to look at who's selling, because it changes all the freaking time. I can tell you, because I've done it myself, and it's not fun. So you need a monitoring tool. You have to have something that does this stuff for sure.
This is an example of one of the modules that we have. This is our Amazon Insights module. If you want to click through, I think there's a couple things. Yeah. So your monitoring tools should be able to provide you with maximum visibility to dive into some crucial buy box winning statistics and things like that. We can provide top buy box ownership by category or worst performing buy box by category. We can help you identify sellers who you don't want to use because they have low ratings, all those kind of things. And then pinpoint factors that cost you buy box ownership, reclaim your revenue.
So, and that's also, also a great benefit of the tool. Hey, John, maybe you want to take us through just a couple of quick best practices here? Or Alex?
Yeah, I can take I'll take this one. I know we're kind of short on time here, but so I think in terms of putting together like the legal framework for all this, it's really important to make sure that the policy is tailored to your brand, to your products. A generic policy reads just like that. Everyone kind of sees through it. If you actually want to create, those material differences, the quality controls need to be specific to your products. And so that's really just sort of what I want to leave everyone with, that it's not simply just putting a document in place. Like, you really got to practice what you preach. If you're going to implement policies, you need to follow them. You need to make sure your authorized resellers follow them. Otherwise, someone could try to, they can fight back and potentially win, which would, not look good for your brand.
And you guys did this for Hinckley, right?
Yes.
We did. So here's just a kind of classic case of what we were describing earlier, as far as the reality of what these lawsuits look like in this context. Hinckley, a great case in point. They are a high-end lighting fixture manufacturer. Many of you may have their products in your homes. The reason this was a successful process was for a couple reasons. One, they had their house in order at the outset, so their trademarks and copyrights were registered. We had helped them implement a very effective, specifically tailored MAP policy prior to engaging in this lawsuit. And they got to the reseller early on. What I mean by that is the entity that we were pursuing was notorious in the industry throughout this kind of high-end lighting fixture ecosphere, and they were kind of the scourge of the industry. People didn't know how to deal with them, but Hinckley took the first step, and because they got to them early, they were able to extract a very favorable settlement to them. Later on, word kind of got out of the industry, and people were curious as to how they obtained that result. And others, also were able to obtain a similar result with our assistance. But later on, some of those cases got a little more dragged out, and they started to put up a fight because it became kind of an existential situation for this reseller, because they weren't going to have any brands left to sell. So it was really critical that Hinckley got to them early on in the process. And when doing so, they had taken all the steps that we've been describing to make sure that when they were engaging in that fight, that they were going to be coming from the high ground.
Awesome. And Michelle, you have a quick case study here. Maybe you do this in a minute and then get to our wrap-ups.
You bet. So pet parents are picky, and Grizzly Pet Products had some challenges with some of their dog supplements. Their unauthorized deceptive sellers were breaking their policies and undercutting prices. We provided them with market visibility and enforcement and Amazon analytics. They had a 95% reduction in MAP violations and saved over 14 hours each week in managing their pricing policy. They also saw a 60% increase in sales at brick and mortar locations. And they said TrackStreet's platform automated much of our policy enforcement, from sending emails to violators to automatically adding worst offenders to a do not sell list. A real game changer for us.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Well, we have probably time for one or two questions. But before we jump into that, number one, we're offering anyone who attends the webinar today a complimentary Amazon assessment. Just email me. We can look at your what your situation is today, what opportunities you have for channel control, but also for growth. And I know, Michelle, you are offering also a complimentary analysis, right? Who's selling products?
You want to find out who's selling your products, where, and for how much, for up to 10 UPCs. We'll be sending out some follow-ups after this webinar. Please respond and let us know.
Yeah, we'll do the same thing. So we got a bunch of questions here. Obviously we're coming up on time, but wow, what a lot of great questions, guys. Thank you. And if we don't get to your question, obviously we're not going to get to all these. We will, and we tried to answer some of them as we went here. But if we don't get to them, we'll follow up with you with answers. Alyssa Singer, thank you. Do we file a DCMA for every vendor that has erroneous seller information, and if it's below MAP? I don't know, Alex or John.
So, yeah, I guess just I'll make a to clarify with the DMCA, you can file multiple with one DMCA. So we routinely have brands where we issue a subpoena for 20 to 30 sellers. So if you have a number of resellers or accounts out there that are violating MAP, we can add that all in one subpoena, you issue it out, comes back in a few weeks. So you definitely can. I mean, you don't have to, but just know that the DMCA isn't, it's for multiple resellers.
We also had a question, thank you, Alex, from Debbie Rihuna earlier. So I'm saying that right. Do you have anyone that's used transparency? And we didn't cover this. Michelle, we did talk about this in our last webinar. You want to touch on that briefly?
So transparency, you have to purchase the codes from Amazon and apply them to each and every product that you manufacture, whether it's being shipped to Amazon or not. The codes are then scanned when it reaches Amazon, when it goes out of Amazon, and also when it gets to the consumer's home. I tested this with something that my daughter got, and it was just like, you bought XYZ, and that was it. The one thing that it can do is it can help to shut down counterfeits. So if you have a counterfeit problem, it's definitely something that you can look into. But as far as overall brand control for unauthorized sellers, if stuff comes into their warehouse that's legitimate product that does not have a transparency sticker on it, you risk losing the transparency program and the approximately 5 cents per sticker that you spent on it.
Ooch. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a bunch of other, thank you, Michelle, a bunch of other questions here, including one that asked about a legal budget to deal with over 100 unauthorized resellers. Of course, John, Alex, that was from an anonymous source. So, anonymous source, what we would suggest, listener, if you're still on the line, send a note to Alex and John. I mean, you hear about legal fees, people get very scared, but there's some ways to manage that. I think that make it manageable for people. And in our experience, speaking, to that issue, it's not as scary from a budget standpoint as you might think.
Yeah, we'd be happy to discuss that with anyone. And a lot of times our clients are engaging us on a monthly flat fee that includes a whole menu of services. So we'd be happy to discuss that with anyone on the call.
Great. Well, hey guys, thank you so much for all of your questions. There's so many here. And we'll get back to as many of them as we can post webinar. Thank you again for participating. We probably should have made this 90 minutes, guys, right? Anyhow, please, oops, not parking lot. Please send me a note if you would like to get a copy or talk about anything. Or Michelle and John, Alex, you're all available. Thank you again for being a part of this. You will get a copy of this recording and the slides over the next few days. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of the week and good luck out there controlling Amazon. Take care.